Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2 were directed by David Yates, again, and star, hopefully for the last time, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint as Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley. The trio are preparing for the final battle against Voldemort. They face the impossible task of tracking down all the remaining Horcruxes for a chance of destroying the Dark Lord when the Wizarding War comes. When these films were announced as two parts, they released a teaser trailer as well, which I remember vividly watching over and over and over again, endlessly. I made a pledge to myself that day to read the book before the first part came out, something that I failed to do with Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince. And so I did. I remember being quite tearful on the last page because I had just finished a chapter of my childhood, now ready to have the films end too and make that conclusion final. I cannot remember exactly what my thoughts were of both movies at the time, but doing a double feature rewatch for this review revealed some more positives and negatives with each one composed together. So let's start with part one. What do I like? Well, for starters, the three things that are nearly always great with Harry Potter movies: cinematography, music, and production design. All three are gorgeous in part one, particularly Eduardo Serra's camera work, which captures so well Yates's moody direction and delivers some emotionally powerful imagery we deserve for one of the last Harry Potter adventures. I still really enjoy the darker territory that Radcliffe, Watson, and Grint have to explore with their characters, and all three do an admirable job, seen as they are the focus of the film more than ever. There are smaller moments that I do enjoy watching, like the first 20 minutes with the battle of multiple Harrys against the Death Eaters, the animated sequence detailing the story of the Deathly Hallows, the death of Dobby, although it should have been a little bit more emotional, should have gotten you instantly as it was in the books because he was a greater character there, and the very last shot of Voldemort getting the Elder Wand from Dumbledore's corpse. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that I like about this movie are kind of small compared to how the movie is executed overall, and that's where I have the real problems. It wasn't the fault of David Yates, screenwriter, Steve Kloves, the producers, the actors, or the studio that part one is as boring, slow, static, and uninteresting as it is. It's the fault of the book. Part one is adapting the first half of the Deathly Hallows novel, which had the same problem of endless page after page after page, chapter after chapter scenes of the trio in their tent, traveling from sad place to sad place, barely doing anything. This was a Kobayashi Maru of a movie, a no-win scenario. If they combined both movies into one epic film and cut out the slow stuff in the first half, not only is the movie way too long, but you'll be eliminating a lot of important setup for the final film, resulting in an empty experience overall. If you keep the separated parts but cut out half the tense stuff in part one, you still don't get the full emotions of the characters and you're just servicing the plot without effective drama. This was the only proper way to do this final story justice, and it doesn't work because it might not have ever been able to. Although you really could have cut out that Bathilda Bagshot is Nagini scene. That still makes no sense to me whatsoever. But let's move on to the epic, explosive, and mighty blockbuster that is part two, from the opening scene, which curiously only shows Snape, the only character to appear before the title comes up. From that scene, we know exactly what we're in for. Alexandre Desplat's new score begins showing that composer's range for both films, going from a restrained and more moody score for part one, then busting out the brand new themes, leitmotifs, and sweeping orchestral sounds just for the title, because this kind of finale deserves 150% from everyone involved, and we certainly received that. While I will say that part one might be a better shot film overall than part two, due to part two having heavier CGI, it's still a gorgeous and simply magical look for this movie that does the wild colors of spells and charms so brilliantly. The effects themselves have a much larger role to play as well, with dragons, trolls, spiders, stone knights, giant crowds of Death Eaters, massive magical shields, crazy new spells, and intricate deaths of the Horcruxes, which all works wonderfully. except for a few shots. There's a couple of CGI shots that don't exactly hold up. And yes, the production design is still great, but that's just to be expected at this point. As for performances, Part 2 delivers some of the best of the entire series. Not only do Radcliffe, Watson, and Grint all give every part of themselves into this final film, but we get a surprising, heartbreaking performance from Alan Rickman. Back in 2011, Warner Brothers were pushing hard for Rickman to get an Oscar nomination for his role in the final film, and the older I get, the more I see why. At first, he's the same old Snape, just being very dry, very simple, no emotion on his face. But in his final moments, just before he dies, and in the revealing memories that he gives over to Harry, we see Snape's true soul, and Rickman plays it so beautifully. There are scenes in Part 2 that, after 7 years and countless rewatches, still get to me and send chills all over. The dragon escape from Gringotts is pretty amazing, but it's McGonagall activating the stone protectors of Hogwarts, composed perfectly with Desplat's score, the witches and wizards of the school casting protection spells around the grounds, Voldemort breaking the shield with one swift blow, Harry's final words to the loved ones he's lost via the Resurrection Stone, his final conversation with Dumbledore in the rather heavenly King's Cross station, the final few scenes of Harry and Voldemort locked in their iconic spells, and the shot of Harry, Ron, and Hermione standing on the bridge to Hogwarts, having won the war and completed their long adventure. It's all so emotional and beautiful. All of those scenes just get to me in so many different ways. It's mind-blowing. And that last scene was a perfect end to this film. Oh, wait, what? What's that? That wasn't the final scene, them on the bridge, that wasn't the final one? No? It keeps going from there? Ending with what exactly? Oh, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, that's really the major flaw I have with Part 2, that bloody epilogue. It's a perfect book ending because we don't have to actually see it. We don't have to see incredibly awkward old age makeup applied to 20-year-old actors, which just does not work and eliminates any real emotional final moment you could have for these characters. It's the easiest fix to just end it 5 minutes earlier in a typical perfect fashion, but nope. David Yates has to get one last weird, out-of-place thing in his last Harry Potter movie before he moves on to a series with many more out-of-place things, but we'll talk about that later. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2 is the kind of conclusion other long-running franchises wish they could do. We saw with Hunger Games, Twilight, and Divergent the failure of a 2-part finale because it could only be done with Harry Potter. This does not excuse the flaws of either, nor the feeling I get from Part 1 as a solid character drama, but not a very good Harry Potter film, but it's still miles better than other Part 1s out there. Both have incredible music, exceptional production design, excellent cinematography, terrific performances, great sound, editing, effects, and yes, even the writing and direction can be quite touching some of the time. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, despite obvious flaws, was a perfect end to a great franchise that I will still watch and enjoy for years to come. And I'll say that Part 1 is a B-.
I'd say a solid B-.
And Part 2 is an A-.
A-? That must be a mistake.
So Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. Have you seen them? What do you think about both films? What do you think about this review? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned to my review of Fantastic Beasts and where to find them in final preparation for Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. And if you want more Mr. Movies, click my channel link come up in the center of the screen right now. And thanks for watching.